Welcome to Strengthening Partnerships, a framework for prenatal through young adulthood family engagement in Massachusetts. This is the first module, an introduction to the framework. This session is an introduction to the Massachusetts Family Engagement Framework. This session will serve as a broad introduction to the contents of the framework. You will learn about each of the sections it contains. You can download the framework at http://www.doe.mass.edu/sfs/family engagement framework.pdf. Feel free to take a moment and pause this recording to write that address down. When you're ready, just hit play to resume. The outcomes for this session are to give you a high-level understanding of the purpose and the different components that comprise the framework. You will learn about how each of the sections in the framework relates to the others. We'll also learn how to access the framework online. Let's start by defining the framework. As you can see, Merriam-Webster defines a framework as a basic conceptual structure. It can also be defined as the skeletal or open work frame that supports a structure. The Massachusetts Family Engagement Framework was designed with this in mind. This framework provides that scaffold and common language to develop programs, policies, and practices that support meaningful family engagement from prenatal to young adulthood and across all sectors of our system, including health, human services, and education. The Massachusetts framework was designed to help organizations at the state and local levels in several sectors, including health, human services, and education. For example, the framework was designed so that a local library, shelter, community health center, early childhood program, public school, or institution of higher education could use the framework to inform and strengthen the way in which they engage families. In this way, the framework provides an aligned and coordinated approach to family engagement across all settings for families. In addition to addressing family engagement in the health, human services, and education sectors, the framework was also intended to help families, policymakers, and other interested stakeholders to strengthen their family engagement programs and practices. The framework was developed to give organizations and communities a roadmap to create equitable family engagement policy, programs, and practices to build the capacity of both families and professionals so they can develop meaningful partnerships that contribute to child and youth success. This is an intentional and comprehensive approach that will engage all families, not just families with privilege. Let's take a look at the framework development process. In September 2017, the state of Massachusetts engaged in a technical assistance opportunity through the Council of Chief State School Officers, with support and guidance from the National Association for Family, School, and Community Engagement, the Policy Equity Group, the Mid-Atlantic Equity Consortium, and the Campaign for Grade Level Reading to collaboratively build a prenatal through post-secondary family engagement framework for use in the health, human services, and education sectors. The development of the Massachusetts framework was led by a three-agency partnership, including the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, the Department of Public Health, and Early Childhood Education and Care. They worked with key state and regional partners to build a coalition. The coalition included partnership from 11 state agencies across the Health and Human Service and Education Secretariats. The Regional Family Engagement Coalition grew to over 500 practitioners and family members over the course of 3 years, and also represented diverse perspectives and sectors, including health, human services, and education. Practitioners on the regional coalition included health, libraries, museums, early education and care programs, home visitors, human services, school and district administrators, and higher education faculty. The state planning team consisted of members from education, health, and human services. They organized the meetings and agendas and led the development of the Regional Family Engagement Coalition. The Regional Family Engagement Coalition provided an opportunity to hear from a diverse group of stakeholders, practitioners, and families to inform the development of the framework and its implementation. The regional coalition met in 3 different regions about 3 times per year. The regional coalition shared their thoughts on what should be included in a prenatal through post secondary family engagement framework. Then they met to review various parts of the framework to make sure their voices were heard and to react to what was written. Once the framework was complete, the regional coalition met to inform the implementation plan and strengthening capacity. In addition to the regional coalition, families and youth groups were included to ensure their voices were heard and included in the framework. Through family and youth focus groups, the coalition gathered information about what is important to families and youth related to engagement and to ensure that barriers they've encountered were addressed in the framework. As part of the implementation process, the state coalition hosted listening sessions to ensure the voices of youth, families, and practitioners continued to be heard. Additional research that contributed to the development of the Massachusetts framework came from the dual capacity for school family partnerships framework, the parent family and community engagement framework for early childhood systems, strengthening families, and the maternal and child health family engagement framework. Now, let's explore the framework. This graphic is a representation of the contents of the framework. As you can see, there are several sections. There are overarching guiding principles. The key elements of the framework are based on those guiding principles. The rest of the framework focuses on transitions and family engagement, as well as building capacity for family engagement. The framework embraces principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion throughout. Meaningful family and community engagement promotes a practice of cultural and linguistic competence. Equity, which is the elimination of privilege, oppression, disparities, and disadvantage, is one of the core values of family engagement. Equitable family engagement embraces diversity among children, youth, and families. Remember, diversity includes, but isn't limited to, different racial, ethnic, linguistic, cultural, or religious backgrounds, gender identities, sexual orientations, family structures, and abilities or special needs. You will find messages of equity and diversity and inclusion throughout all sections of the framework. And we'll spend more time on those areas in other modules. 5 guiding principles form the basis of this framework. These principles provide a foundation for creating, within systems and organizations, a culture that values and thrives on family engagement. School and community organizations play a crucial role in establishing and strengthening shared connections with families. An intentional adoption and implementation of these principles across health, human services, and education systems and organizations is critical to the implementation of this framework and the strengthening of family engagement practices that lead to better outcomes for children, youth, and their families. The first guiding principle is that each family is unique and all families represent diverse structures. Family engagement includes genuine efforts to understand each family's beliefs, values, priorities, goals, and aspirations. Families and practitioners make joint decisions and share responsibility in a successful partnership. This principle encourages fundamental practices that include but aren't limited to recognizing and respecting the uniqueness of each family, keeping families and youth voices and perspectives at the center, and planning and implementing activities with families and youth, not for families and youth. The second guiding principle is that diversity is expressed and experienced at multiple levels, such as, but not limited to, race, religion, ethnicity, culture, language, family structures, ability, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, and educational level. Acknowledging and accepting the need to engage all families is essential for successful engagement of diverse families and includes recognizing the strengths that come from their diverse backgrounds. This principle encourages fundamental practices that include but aren't limited to recognizing and respecting the individuality of each family, including the strengths it possesses, the needs it has, and the barriers it faces, acknowledging the diversity within and across families within an organization, healthcare setting, school, or community, and approaching diversity from a strengths based perspective. Guiding Principle 3 states building a respectful, trusting, and reciprocal relationship is a shared responsibility of families, practitioners, organizations, and systems. This positive relationship has the individual family's strengths and assets at its center. This principle encourages fundamental practices that include but aren't limited to embracing the philosophy that building positive goal oriented relationships is a two-way process between everyone involved, recognizing and respecting diversity within and across families, striving to establish a positive relationship with all families, and acknowledging that for some families, due to prior experiences, trust may need to be rebuilt, dedicating the time needed to reestablish that trusting relationship. The fourth guiding principle states families are their child's first and best advocate. This premier role puts families in a unique position to nurture their children's growth and development and to help practitioners become knowledgeable about their child. This principle encourages fundamental practices that include but are not limited to recognizing families as the best champions of their children's success in all domains of development, learning, health, and well being, honoring and drawing on families' wealth of knowledge, experience, and expertise, and engaging families in all decisions made with regards to their child. Guiding principle number 5 is that equity is the eradication of privilege, oppression, disparities, and disadvantage. Family engagement must be equitable. Equitable family engagement is comprised of intentional and meaningful engagement activities and systems for all families or groups of families, irrespective of the family's level of or approach to engagement. Providing equity based opportunities for family engagement can help family members become effective advocates for their children. This principle encourages fundamental practices that include, but are not limited to, reflecting on and addressing inequities, as well as implicit and explicit bias within individuals and organizations, policies, and systems when engaging with families, integrating cultural and linguistic responsive practices, including but not limited to translation, interpretation, and partnership with cultural brokers, valuing opportunities to engage with all families to learn more about them, their experiences, culture, and goals, and recognizing the need to build and rebuild trust with families who experience inequities and bias. Following the guiding principles, the framework then presents the four elements that provide the foundation for this framework. The first one is building positive relationships. The second one is promoting family well being. The third is promoting pathways for partnerships with families. And the fourth is supporting child and youth development and learning. Each element builds on the previous element. For example, practitioners are better positioned to support family well being, element number two, after they have established a solid, positive relationship with families that's based on mutual respect and trust, element one. Similarly, practitioners are more likely to be successful in connecting families with community resources that support their well being, element two, and support them in assisting their child to achieve developmental, learning, and health related goals, element four, when families have been provided a range of opportunities that meet their engagement needs, element three. Also, each element includes a set of goals to work towards, as well as example practices that cut across health, services, and education sectors. Underlying all of these elements is the understanding that the family plays the most pivotal role in this partnership and decides the trajectory of the relationship. Practitioners need to meet families wherever they are and focus on their individual needs and expectations. Additionally, recognizing diversity like cultural diversity, multilingualism, or diversity in family structures as assets helps to foster positive and healthy partnerships with families. The primary and fundamental element of family engagement is to build strong, positive, and effective relationships with families that can help children and families thrive. Mutual trust and respect lie at the core of these relationships. This trust and partnership is not only the foundation for all other elements of the framework, but also essential for their successful implementation. Strong relationships focus on family strengths and work towards a joint goal of achieving child and family well being and success. Building relationships is a dynamic and ongoing process to which children, families, and practitioners contribute in equal parts. Healthy relationships between children, family, and practitioners develop through a series of authentic interactions over time that are meaningful to everyone involved. Through open, ongoing, and reciprocal communication and an intentional emphasis on family strengths, interests, passions, and needs, practitioners and families are involved in a continuous process of relationship building. Strong, positive relationships with families not only paves the way for successful family engagement, but also nurtures effective relationships within families, which in turn helps achieve the development, learning, health, and well being goals for children. Family well being, which is comprised of safety, health, and financial security, is an important outcome for families. Well being includes, but isn't limited to, having access to opportunities for educational advancement and economic mobility, physical and mental health services, housing and food assistance, and other family support services. Strong and secure families lead to healthy and thriving children who are ready for a lifetime of learning. Community engagement, an essential component of the framework, allows practitioners to assist families in achieving their well-being goals. The collaboration between practitioners, children, youth, families, and community engagement agencies helps build positive relationships. These relationships support families' progress towards their goals for themselves and their children. Community partners provide culturally and linguistically responsive services and helpful resources. Partners are available to work with families and other practitioners on such goals as family members' health, mental health, educational advancement, economic mobility, and other aspects of family well being identified by the family. Community engagement can produce long term benefits in the lives of children, youth, and family members by giving them a sense of belonging, and it plays a pivotal role in building their identity. Promoting opportunities for establishing, maintaining, and enhancing partnerships with families is a required element for successful implementation of family engagement within organizations. It's necessary for practitioners to recognize there's a continuum of engagement that exists for families and that each family has its unique place on this continuum. Through positive relationships established with a family, practitioners should meet each family where they are in their level of engagement by providing a broad agency definition for engagement that's responsive to the level of engagement chosen by each family. Providing multiple pathways for the engagement of family and equally valuing each pathway helps to build trusting relationships with them and creates opportunities for them to determine the level of engagement with which they are most comfortable. Engaging families in decision making and sharing power implies practitioners' recognition of families' role as the prime advocate for their children. Listening openly to families' concerns and seeking their perspectives results in engagement of families that leads to determining solutions with families rather than for families. A primary goal of family engagement is building relationships with families that support the ongoing learning, development, health, and well being of children and youth. Once practitioners have built trusting relationships with families, they're positioned to partner with families around their children or youth's learning, development, health, and well being. Practitioners can support families in their relationships with children by talking with them about their child's development, learning, health, and well being. The two-way sharing of information about their child opens doors for both families and practitioners to be more effectively engaged with their children. Welcoming families to join and observe their child in classrooms, participate in home visits, and or interact with health professionals provides them with an opportunity to become a part of their child's learning, development, health, and well-being beyond home. It gives family members a chance to enhance and practice their engagement and leadership skills as well. At the same time, engaging with families in this manner also enhances the knowledge or capacity of a practitioner to support a child's development. It's important to ensure that practitioners reflect on the accessibility, like language, time, and location, of those engagement opportunities to proactively create pathways for engagement that are responsive to the needs of families. Equally valuable is connecting families with other families and community resources to enhance learning, development, health, and well being. Let's take a quick look at some of the other important components of the framework. Equity is a critical component woven throughout the framework because family engagement must be equitable. Meaningful family and community engagement promotes a practice of cultural and linguistic competence. Equity, which is the elimination of privilege, oppression, disparities, and disadvantage, is one of the core values of family engagement. Equitable family engagement embraces diversity among children, youth, and families. Diversity includes, but isn't limited to, different racial, ethnic, linguistic, cultural, and religious backgrounds, gender identities, sexual orientations, family structures, and abilities or special needs. Equity focused organizations intentionally seek to recognize and create practices that dismantle institutional and structural racism and individuals' implicit and explicit biases. Organizations need to make a clear and unequivocal commitment to equity in every phase of family engagement, planning, implementation, and evaluation. Changes in family circumstances, experience, structures, and living arrangements are a normal part of life. Cowan defines life transitions as changes that involve qualitative reorganizations of the self and the inner world, social roles, and close relationships. Some transitions are developmental and predictable for a considerable number of families, whereas some other transitions are experienced by fewer families and are far more unpredictable. Developmental transitions usually follow biological, psychological, or social norms and are heavily influenced by culture. Every culture defines its own transitions. Transitions are vital opportunities for practitioners to engage families by offering leadership and advocacy opportunities, and so they're an important component of this framework. Practitioners can assist families to successfully navigate transitions by helping them anticipate them and by jointly establishing transition plans. For the purpose of this framework, transitions are differentiated into four types: child, youth, and family development transitions, everyday transitions, systems transitions, and unanticipated transitions. Child, youth, and family development transitions are those that arise as a result of changes in age or the developmental stage of children and youth in the family, including the transition to young adulthood. Everyday transitions, as the name suggests, arise from the daily changes in situations and circumstances faced by family members. Systems transitions are those that arise within and across systems when families have to navigate multiple systems like health, education, and human services. In addition to the transitions experienced by a considerable number of families, this framework also refers to unanticipated transitions. Those are transitions generally experienced by fewer families, things like losing a home or a job or a sudden disability diagnosis, which has a lot of long term implications. Strengthening capacity around family engagement goes beyond providing practitioners with resources and increasing their expertise to engage families in meaningful ways, to changing mindsets and creating an organizational culture of family engagement. It involves a cultural shift from understanding family engagement as random acts of parent involvement to an intentional, ongoing, and consistent process of engaging each and every member of the family. Strengthening capacity starts with the organization's emphasis on family engagement as a fundamental priority and builds on the involvement and support of every member within the organization in family engagement activities and endeavors. The framework examines strengthening capacity through four areas: staffing, resource development, professional development, and evaluation. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about the Massachusetts framework. Let's take a minute to summarize the content of this module before we wrap up. This framework was developed with a broad diversity of perspectives and was designed to provide a scaffold for the development of programs, policies, and practices that support meaningful family engagement from prenatal to young adulthood. The framework consists of multiple sections, including guiding principles that lay the foundation for the work. There are also four key elements that translate those guiding principles into practice. The framework has an entire section on transitions because those are key opportunities to engage all families in meaningful ways. There's also a focus on strengthening capacity to go beyond providing practitioners with resources and increasing their expertise to engage families in a meaningful way, to changing mindsets and creating an organizational culture of family engagement. This module is only one session designed to bring the Massachusetts framework to life. Other modules include a deeper dive, which focuses more intensely on guiding principles and the four key elements, a module on culturally responsive family engagement, which focuses on building equitable family engagement programs and practices to engage all families, and a module we call Where Do We Go From Here? That takes a closer look at transitions and strengthening capacity segments of the framework. For more information on the modules and the Massachusetts framework, please contact the Massachusetts Statewide Family Engagement Center. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about Strengthening Families, a framework for prenatal through young adult family engagement in Massachusetts.